So welcome to the session today. I'm really excited to be part of the eBay Elevate series. It's a webinar brought to you by eBay and Small Business Britain. Just as a quick house note before we get started, I'd just like to state the advice and opinions shared in the session today are mine, and they do not necessarily reflect the views or the positions of eBay or Small Business Britain. So it's all on me. And just a reminder again, the session is being recorded. We're going to be talking all about how to build a PR plan for your small business. We've got an hour. I'm going to make sure I leave some space at the end for live Q&A, but please use the Q&A box as we go through. I'm going to try and give some prompt questions just to make sure it's just not me talking at you for the next 45 minutes. And without further ado, I am going to kick off. She says very confidently, and then her mouse sticks. There we go. Hold on, no, there we go. So a beautiful brand is amazing, but a meaningful one is better. This is a quote taken from the book Brand Yourself that I wrote with the co-founder of my children. And the reason I quite like to start off with a big punchy quote is just a reminder, whether we are a product or a service-based business, we can have all the visuals, we can have our sales page looking all slick, but if we don't stand for something, it makes it difficult for us to separate ourselves out. And when I'm talking about PR, I'm really talking about getting you to bring a bit of your personality forward, to make it easier for you to micro billboard your business all the time, every touch point, so that your audience has that emotional connection with you, and also so that they can get you front of mind, and it helps sort of separate you from your competitors. I've just seen we've had a question, what is PR? Do not worry, I'm going to be coming to that in just 1 second. So just to kind of start off with PR, for those of you who kind of maybe you don't even know what PR is, that's absolutely fine. Perhaps just as a question to start off with, does anybody kind of want to put in the Q&A box what their fears around PR might be? Feel free to type an answer into that. Typically, when I poll people, normally a lot of things that come up is confidence, having time, knowing what to say, being ignored. Someone just said being ignored. That does come up quite a lot. Honestly, I spend my whole life being ignored by people. Somebody's put dealing with negative PR. Yeah, I mean, that can also be like a real fear, particularly when it comes to kind of managing our audience sometimes. So yeah, some of the answers we've got here are mainly cost and time, getting it wrong, expensive, the cost. So look, in terms of kind of cost and time, there's definitely a lot of things that you can be doing to promote yourself that is no cost to you other than the time it takes you to do it. And I'm going to hopefully give you some ideas and tips and tricks today to help you start thinking about how to get yourself out there without having to share too much information about your private life or taking up too much of your time. So back to the original question that somebody said earlier, which is what exactly is PR? For me, publicity is just pitching to press. So that is telling your story to a journalist. That's just one strand of PR. But for me, PR is everything that you do in the public eye. So just to give you an example of this, here's some different things that fall under the category of PR. I'm not going to read all of them out, but everything that you're doing that manages your representation in the public. So it could be, for me speaking to you right now, I am doing PR for myself. It could be what your copy is on your website. It could be the micro influencers that you're working with. It could be how you handle a customer complaint in a crisis management, what you're putting on social media, the events you're hosting. It really is everything that you are doing in the public eye. And that's not there to stress you out. It's just actually a reminder that it is more than just pitching a story to a journalist. And especially for those of you who do have a product-based business, getting into media outlets isn't that silver bullet for sales that I think everybody thinks it is. Actually doing things like talking about how you've created your product or the lessons that you've learned on the way can be a really great way to connect with your audience and actually lead to further sales. So I'm going to be kind of steering you away from just talking about publicity today, although I will be covering elements of that off as well. What I'd really like you to kind of take away, if there's nothing else that you remember from the session today, if you sign off after the first sort of 10 minutes, is to think like a magazine. And what I mean by that is when you think about the magazines, like it might be a weekend supplement magazine or one that you take off a shop, there's different types of sections. And that's exactly how I want you to think about when it comes to telling your story. So it could be the news, which is typically the bits at the front. It could be announcements, significant wins, hires, sales, new products, limited editions. And then when you think about a magazine, you have the features. These are typically like the trend pieces. So a trend piece to me is normally when there's 3. So maybe there's some competitors or people who are your peers that have a similar product, but it's in a different sector. So maybe you sell candles and you want to partner with somebody who sells notebooks, for example. So think about other people who kind of share your audience, who have a similar, I guess, category to you that you could collaborate with as a feature. Then you kind of, when you think about papers and magazines, you have like the opinion and the guest articles. So that's a really great opportunity for you to put yourself forward, controlling that narrative, being the face of your business, but really kind of owning what your story is. And last but not least is what I call the horoscope and recipe pages. It's like showing a bit of ankle, like how can you show a bit of personality of yourself without feeling like you're really exposed and showing all of your private life. So an example of that might be, for myself, I'm a service-based business, so I don't necessarily have a product. So I will quite often talk about a Netflix show that I've been watching and put my own service-based spin on that. So just to kind of, if you don't know who I am, this is just a little intro to me. I have been working in PR for 2 decades. I've written 2 books, one called Hype Yourself, which is all about how to help businesses to PR themselves. And I wrote a book with the co-founder of my children called Brand Yourself, which is kind of probably the step before really about building your brand and taking it out there. So I've been in agency land for a long time, set up my own consultancy in 2014. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I've really focused on empowering people like yourselves to get yourselves out there. I've just seen a few people popping through saying that they have to leave or they're going early. Do not worry, the session is being recorded. So yeah, I'm not going to talk loads about myself, but I am very passionate about helping people like you to get your story out there. So hopefully you will find the advice useful and credible today. So just to kind of give you a recap of what we're going to be covering through, we're going to go through this little 4-tier system. We're going to kind of assess where we are. I did say he was the co-founder of my children. Yeah. We're going to assess where we are. We're going to build some kind of ideas and concepts. We're going to create some topics, and then we're going to end on a dream big. Always like to end on a big positive note and on a finish. And I am also going to leave some space for Q&A, but please do pop Q&A as we go through. And I'll try and get to it. If it's something I know I'm going to be talking about later, I might casually ignore you, but I will return to you later on, I promise. So, to a stranger, our personal brand and our PR is kind of actually what happens when they Google us. So I just sort of wanted to, normally I kind of get people to go out in breakout rooms and I get them to Google each other. But I just wondered if anybody in the room has recently Googled themselves or maybe done it anonymously. So they've looked on either on a private view or they've used a search like DuckDuckGo and done a Google search of themselves. If anybody has, feel free to put it into the Q&A box. But I want to encourage all of you to do it. And in fact, please feel free. We've got some raised hands there. Thank you. I want you to encourage you to do this for yourself, because this is going to actually give you a real perspective of what people see when they're looking for you. It can feel excruciatingly awkward especially for the very kind of British amongst us, that kind of Hugh Grant rom-com stutteryness. We don't necessarily want to know what's being found when people are looking. But the reason why this is actually quite a good exercise to do is it actually sets us off to assess what it is that we want people to find. And I quite often always say I'm Lucy Werner PR, so that when people search, they're searching Lucy Werner PR, because there are actually, weirdly, even though Werner's not, I would say it's not, it's not a John Smith of the world. There's quite a few Lucy Werners out there. So if I say Lucy Werner PR, it means that the information about me is going to be coming up. So just a kind of quick hack on this one. Google absolutely loves YouTube and it absolutely loves Twitter. So if you are finding an old image of yourself, if you're an oldie like me and you had a MySpace account, Google also loves MySpace. So you might have a MySpace photo cropping up, which we don't necessarily want. So think about, could you do a quick little video introduction to yourself? Or could you tweet a recent photo of yourself or a recent photo of your product or something that's related to your service-based business? And that really helps just to kind of change what's on the Google ranking when they're searching for you. I'm just having a quick look. Yeah, a few people have said that somebody said they've got a Google alert set up for your business name. That's a great idea, particularly in terms of if you're not sure if coverage has come out or not, if you've been sending some product out or sent a pitch out and you're waiting to see a response. That can be a really great way. And somebody's also said about updating your Google with your business photos and videos, and that's great. Somebody just asked, why would an eBay seller want to brand themselves? So I guess from my perspective, whilst you're on eBay, there's an opportunity for you to reach an audience outside eBay to bring people in to your eBay account. So learning how to promote yourself and take yourself out there is going to help drive traffic to your eBay business page and bring people over there. So it's a really great opportunity for you to drive sales, grow your audience and get that exposure. Somebody said, how do you deal with your name being spelled oddly? So I quite often like it when people actually put maybe in brackets the phonetic spelling of their name. That can be quite helpful. And maybe, yeah, I think like it is a tricky one with the difficult names because people like to obviously just have something simple and easy to them, at least, like a John Smith. But I think it's always sort of educating people of like this, my name is Shona and it's written like this. So, and you can kind of actually play with that a bit as part of your branding and part of your story. Okay, so the next thing in our kind of assess section, I've put a list of values here. And one of the reasons why I get people to think about your values is it sets really good guardrails for you in terms of promoting yourself in the future. So if a massive influencer or a massive magazine decides it wants to work with you, particularly as small business owners, it can be super tempting for us to just say yes. But actually, if we take a step back, we can check, like, hold on a minute, do these values align with our business? Because if they don't, maybe we don't want to be doing that partnership. Our ego can kind of take over sometimes. So just having a think about what are the values that fit for you. I've written a whole list here, but I would say try and have sort of 5 in your head. And when you're thinking about promotion, where you're taking your business out there, who it is that you're speaking to, they are aligned with the values that you have for your business. So yeah, write them all down, all the ones that apply to you. If you're one of those people who's like, oh, it could be about 20, pop them all down and then select your final 5. And I would say, so I'm just going to take a breath. I'm on the 11th hour of pregnancy. Hold on. Whew, the excitement kicking in. After you've written down all of them, select that final 5, and that is going to then help you sort to move forward. And don't worry about faking it. You don't need to be a value that you're not. I think it's just a really good opportunity for you to just have a really sort of strong starting point of where it is that you want to be going. Also, feel free to ask your friends or family, because they might see a value in you that you don't see in yourself. So it can be a really nice confidence boosting exercise as well. And then last but not least, in the assess section, I just wanted to get you to think about your business goals. So there's probably a bit of an audience split here today. Some of you are going to be Small Business Britain. Some of you are going to be eBay. So your business goal is going to be slightly different. If you're an eBay seller, your current business goal is probably to sell more on eBay. For some of you, if you're more of a service-based business, it might be that you're looking for brand collaborations. It might be that you're looking to grow your audience. It might be that you're launching a new product. And regardless of kind of wherever it is that you are, you might have a different platform or a different revenue stream that you are looking to work on. So have a kind of idea in your head of what is your current business goal, because this is going to shape where we are focusing our publicity. So for example, if you're an eBay seller looking to sell more products, you might not necessarily just want to go all in on pitching to journalists. You might be thinking about, oh, actually, can I do a podcast interview to drive traffic to my eBay page, for example? So just back to the agenda, that was our little assess section. So just as a quick recap, we went through our values, we went through our business goals, and now we're going to go into the build section. So we're going to be talking about what you need in your press toolkit before you take yourself out there. So I'm going to run through all of these things and give you a quick sort of tip, hack, and some examples against each one. Yeah, so this is overall, again, we're going to be sending the recording, so don't feel like you have to record each of these down. And we could probably spend, an hour session on each of these things, but I'm just going to cover off as much as I can in the time that we've got today. So the one-liner. So one of the tips I always give to people is when you're introducing yourself, whether that's on a podcast, whether you're on an event, whether you are just introducing yourself on social media, I really want to get you thinking about how you can say what it is that you do, which is jargon free, does what it says on the tins. That's why I've got the Ron Seal can here, and also to say it slowly. So one of the things that I typically see people do when they're introducing themselves is they rush over their name and they rush over their business name, because again, it's that British awkwardness in us. We kind of don't want to take that time. So really pace yourself when you are introducing yourself, because you never know who else is in the room. You never know who else can help you take your business to the next level. And if you're skimming over it too much, they're not going to have that opportunity to know how it is to work with you. So I always start with that one-liner and make sure that that's the same across all of the platforms that you're on. So if you're promoting on other social media channels, that it's very clear that it's on there. Okay, then next we have the biography. So this is our opportunity to go into a little bit more information. So I would typically say, don't use more than 150 words, and don't feel, I think one of the risks I see is either we try and give far too much information and it can be very confusing for people, or we're not giving enough. So I kind of try to use this ABC model where it's attention, benefits, and then credentials or call to action, depending on your business goal. So your attention is your one-liner. So for me, that would be, hi, I'm Lucy Werner. I'm a PR and personal brand expert, full stop. Now, I haven't even gone into at that point all the different types of work that I do. So I might just move straight into my benefits and say, I've got 20 years publicity experience and I like to help small business owners and founders to get famous and take themselves out there. So again, I'm not really going into the different products and services and things that I'm doing. And then my call to action could be, do you want to sign up to my newsletter or come and join me in my eBay and Small Business Britain webinar? Or if I'm not particularly selling, which I'm not at the moment because I'm very close to giving birth, it might just be more, and I've written a best-selling book on PR. So I'm just always kind of giving that reminder out there. one of the tips I also like is thinking about other people, maybe even kind of larger people who are industry folk, and having a look at their biographies to see how they're writing it. Particularly, you know, when it comes to writing, it is like a muscle. So the more you write, the easier it gets. So having a look at kind of the way other people write can be a really good thing to do. I know also as well as a lot of people using like ChatGPT or AI tools to help them with writing. I'm just going to kind of give a caveat on that. I think it's a good place to start. And I think it's good as a kind of an editorial assistant to get help from AI to write. But you want to make sure that it is, again, aligned with your values and with your business goals and your personality. So you want to keep your tone of voice in there. Okay, I'm just going to pause at the end of this build section just to get to some of the questions in the chat, but I'm just going to carry on for now, but please keep putting them through. It's great to see that interaction. I would encourage all of you to invest in photography, particularly if you're looking to grow your profile, grow the profile of your business and make more sales. Because once you have invested in some personal branding photography, you're actually going to want to take yourself out there. And I would say the key shot is actually this one, which is just the portrait with the head and shoulders lined up to camera, looking straight. Now, this one's actually Una. She's a chef, so you can see she's got some ingredients on her fingers, so that's showing a bit of her personality. But if you think about podcast covers, the photo of my face used to promote the session today, if you're going to be featured in a newspaper article, if you're going to be speaking on a stage, you're going to be asked for a headshot. So definitely think about, at least if nothing else, get your phone, get it just set up in an easy space, get yourself on a plain background, just have that head and shoulder cutout available. Now, this one here, it's a full length shot. You don't necessarily need that. I've popped this in here because this is actually my friend Nigel. He's a tailor. So for him, it makes sense that he's got the full length image in there because it relates to what he does as a business. But generally speaking, for PR purposes, you're not often going to be asked for that full body shot. Then this one is my absolute favorite, and it's the best hack. This is the landscape image. Now, I would be mindful of this one because it has got product in there and you don't want to be too heavily branded in your product photography. But it's this landscape shots and so important. And the reason is that even now, as you're watching me, I'm sat in a landscape thumbnail on the screen. When you think about articles in the newspaper, when you think about blog posts, when you think about newsletters, we are typically reading it in that landscape format. And I've definitely helped my clients secure being higher up in a newspaper article, or even being able to kind of dominate more of the page in a newspaper because they've been able to submit this image. So if you are investing in photography, or even if you're just doing it for yourself at home, definitely get this landscape one. It's superbly useful, especially more for digital PR and digital media. Okay, and then next we're going to just talk about your media list. So this is kind of like the last thing that we're going to put into the toolkit. And on the question of the best place to find the right journalist contact, I am going to be coming back to that one. But for some of you, again, going back to your business goals, what is it that you're trying to do right now? Are you trying to secure a physical retailer? Are you looking for investment? Do you want to get in a grant? Are you trying to grow your newsletter? Are you looking to tap into another audience? For your media list, just think about all the different places that you could be pitching outside of just newspapers and magazines, because there's some great opportunities there for you to raise your profile, grow your audience, and encourage those sales outside of traditional PR. So have a think about, normally if I'm doing this kind of more face-to-face, I'd get you kind of scheming and writing down. But for your kind of your next step, just think about where are the places that you could be pitching to that maybe you haven't considered that your audience is at. Okay, so I'm just going to pause here before we move into the curate section, just to answer a couple of questions. So Emily said, what advice would you give to a very niche small business? I'm struggling with explaining strangers what my product is without overloading them with information. So I would say, obviously, I don't know what your niche small business is, but I actually think niche is really good because it can be then super clear who it is for. So depending on whether it's, a product or service, I would, in my one-liner, try to be very clear that, my name is Emily and I make X for Y. And then it can leave the space for people to ask for more information. I think sometimes we can feel like we have to give all of the information and explain everything about our product, but actually just kind of giving the headline of it is a really quick and succinct way to just leave that space to ask further information. I would also try, one of my favorite kind of AI writing tools is one called copy.ai. And that can actually help you with product descriptions. It's very marketing and sales focused. I wouldn't fully rely on that as a tool for PR, but again, as an editorial assistant, you can kind of put all of the information in there and get it to help you to make it more succinct. So I hope that helps. Emily, Christina said, what do you mean by a downloadable bio? How do you do that? Just a PDF. So for press and for most people, I would say never attach things as a PDF because they're super busy and they are trying to get that information quickly, especially a journalist. But even for a podcast host, they need to be able to cut and paste it and put it into the show notes really quickly. So if there is a page on your website where somebody can just click download and they can get it as a Word document, that's a great thing to do. It's not a must-have, it's just bonus points if you can do it on there. But it's also for you as well. Like we saw right at the beginning when I was asking about what are the struggles when it comes to PR, a lot of us were saying time. So actually being able to just have a link where you can forward your bio and your headshot for press opportunities just makes our life a little bit quicker and easier. Can we see all of the values again? I'll flick back to the values at the end of the talk, but if you actually Google sort of ideas for values, there's loads of these kind of templates all over the internet, so you can kind of find lots of those lists everywhere. So somebody has said, we're a slightly larger company here expanding on eBay. Would you recommend actual product photos? We're currently using a combo of stock photos and edited products with our labels on. I always think where possible, real product photos are good, particularly in situ, and particularly if you've maybe got audience like your user generated content as well. If you can get permission from your audience, like when you think about some of the biggest sort of selling platforms, they quite often encourage when people are leaving reviews to take photos of the product on there. And I think the reason why stock photos can be a problem is it doesn't always necessarily replicate our brand imagery. So when we are actually thinking about the images of ourselves and our products, everything kind of comes into play with like what the landscape is, what the models look like, what the color of the background is. Like that can all kind of reflect the feeling of your brand. So I would say where you can, try to use your own photography. But again, I do think these days there is so many opportunities with design tools and design platforms and editing on your phone to actually get some kind of good imagery that's enough, it's high enough resolution enough just for online. Emma has said she understands that people buy from people and she knows that she needs to share herself more, but she struggles to work out is what's too personal or relevant for my social media. Do I share behind the scenes of my family or just behind the scenes of what I'm doing in my business? So I would say, Emma, and I'm going to come onto this when we move into this thought topics piece. I often think it's quite helpful to write a list of the things that you are happy to talk about versus the things that you're not. So, for example, I have relocated to France, but my work is still very much UK based and I travel back to London still as much as I can. But just to kind of share that glimpse of my relocation, I will do a post normally weekly, which is kind of like my behind the scenes of moving to France, but I don't share photos of my children or inside of my house. It's sort of more about the logistics. So definitely think about how you can kind of just set yourself guardrails of like, I'm happy to talk about this, but I don't want to talk about that. The AI product for product descriptions, copy.ai is the tool that I recommend. What recommendations would you share when updating LinkedIn for small business owners? I'll come back to that one. The media list. So for your media list, if you work through all the questions all the way through, so you've got your business goals, you're thinking about which audience you need to reach, then you need to be thinking about where that audience is. Quite often polling your audience can be a really good thing to do as well, to see what blogs or podcasts or events they're going to or they're reading. And somebody said, it's difficult for me to do my blog free because I have very different services and I also have separate interests. So I would say then focus again, go back to your business goals. Which is the core business? Which is the one that's bringing in the most income? Which is the one that you want to campaign on right now? And focus on that. There are many entrepreneurs who have several businesses, but when you look at their business bios, they tend to kind of focus on what the hero business is or the one that's the biggest revenue driver for them. Okay, I'm going to come back to some of these questions, but I'm mindful of time. So I'm just going to carry on through the next bit of the presentation and I'll jump back to these at the next segue. Okay, so we're coming into the curate section. So for those of you who had questions around coming up with content, this is going to be the bit for you. And I tend to encourage people to think in 3 buckets. So you have your business expertise, human interest, and passion points. So an easy place, especially if you're service-based to start, is actually on business expertise. So it could be top 5 tips, how I went from X to doing Y. Again, using that copy AI tool that I mentioned earlier, if you give a kind of gist of like, these are the sort of things that my business does, it can help you with ideas of headlines that you can work on. But I also kind of encourage you to look at what people are searching for. So there's another really great website called Answer the Public. And on that, you can see, you can type in your keyword. So for me, obviously, it would be PR. And you can see what people are searching for. And then you can create a headline around that. There's also a great tool on coschedule.com with for headline analyzer, where you can test different headlines. And that's because part of the main thing, particularly when it comes to pitch emails and sending them out to press, is what's in the headline is the most important piece. The next pillar is human interest. So human interest, sometimes it can be that we've set up a business because we had a life-changing event. We've maybe had a big triumph over adversity. We can give these kind of real life opinions or real life stories. This is the bit where actually it is worth taking some time, especially if you have got fear about a journalist sort of digging into your private life. We can really get an idea of what it is that we're comfortable to talk about. So as I've mentioned, I talk about moving to France, but I wouldn't necessarily talk about my children or my parents, for example, even though there could be a story in that. So just think about what are the human interest areas that you're happy to talk about. For some people, it might be a deep and personal story, but actually they want to share it because they want to help others. So it's totally up to you. And then last but not least, the passion points. So remember, right at the beginning, we were talking about thinking like a magazine. This is kind of like the horoscope and recipe pages. So it might be that you have a kind of story that you want to share that's vaguely related to your business, but not 100%. So I'll give you an example. I got married in lockdown and I pitched a first person opinion piece on how it was a really good opportunity for me to support small businesses and also keep it affordable, because I could only have 10 people. It was the rule of 10 at that time or something, rule of 6, rule of 10. I think it was 10 in it, whatever. There was a rule there. I stuck to it. But for me, because I'm passionate about championing small businesses, it was a really great opportunity to kind of share a little bit of my personal life, but in a way that I felt comfortable because it's still related to what I do as a business. So I would encourage all of you to kind of have these headers. And then as and when you read, you might think, oh, do you know what? I actually could do a business expertise piece on this. I could talk about the success I've had since launching my business on eBay. I could talk about how I found my distributor, or how I created my first packaging label, or, whatever it is. You've probably got so many more ideas, articles around expertise that you've not even begun to scratch the surface with. And the reason why the big business expertise pieces are quite nice is because you're quite safe. When you're talking about how to hype yourself or time-saving hacks or anything like that, you're not going to be laying yourself open for a journalist to dig around about you, for example. The other thing I would say is, for these content ideas, you can apply them whether you are pitching for a guest article, whether it's a title for a workshop that you might want to host for free to grow your audience, or it could be the title for a podcast. So once you've really kind of got 3 or 4 different sort of headline topic ideas, you can really use them to pitch to the different areas of your media list. Somebody said, can I make a real example at the end of my lesson how you can use these tools within eBay? So the whole bit of kind of what I'm talking about is how to take you outside of selling on eBay to get wider exposure. But what you could be doing is, when you're doing these pieces, is to always have that link. So your call to action at the end of your bio, at the end of your podcast interview, at the end of the article you're writing, is always directing people to your eBay page and bringing the people over there with you. Okay, then the pitch email. So always start with the headline of the topic and where it's for. So one of the things I talk about quite a lot as an easy way to hit press is light bulb, which I think we're going to get onto. Have I got it in there? Maybe she's got it in there. She's going to come back to you. Lightbulb is a Facebook group where you can connect directly with journalists. And I quite often see people are pitching it in for stories, but they're not saying which journalist is for, which makes it really hard for the journalists who are busy on the other side. So I would always say, this is a pitch for the product placement page. This is a pitch for features. This is a pitch for news. And you're only going to kind of really know where the pitch is supposed to be for when you're reading these publications. So again, going all the way back to the beginning, our business goals, where we want to be, study them, and making sure that our pitch is very tailored. So we know where it's for, and then get short and straight to the point. So again, we can often have this British awkwardness of trying to kind of flit around what it is. Just be really clear. Are you interested in my product for your product placement page? I thought it could work with this list. I thought it could work for your audience. This is how I can promote any coverage on my channels, and just kind of have these sort of succinct bullet points. Make it no more than sort of 2 to 3 paragraphs. I've actually got a worksheet that's going to be sent afterwards today, which has an email template on there for you to use, which you can see where it's got gaps in there for you to sort of fill out. But in terms of your biography or a press release, I would always have that underneath. I often see a mistake small business owners make is to actually attach it as a PDF, but again, don't do that. Cut and paste it underneath. And if you have a hero product, always insert an image of that in the email so that the person on the other side can see what it looks like. Again, not too high res, not too big, just a little thumbnail, and make it really easy for them. Have a link to download the images. So if they want to use it, everything is there. I quite often see as well people responding to #journo request on Twitter. And rather than giving the journalist everything, again, they go very British and polite and say, oh, I've got a product that could work for that if you're interested. But actually, I would just email the journalist straight and say, like, yes, I have a product that fits. Here's the high-res image. Here's the information, and give it all to them at once. You're making that job super easy for them. The press is superbly busy. So as much as you can give them all at once, so they've got everything there ready for you, the better it is. Okay, the press release. So in general, I don't love them because I think they can make you a bit lazy. I think you can write a press release for your product or service, get a media list of like hundreds, and then sort of wang it out. And actually it's kind of what I call spray and pray or spam. I actually think you're much better off sending a bespoke pitch email, which is why I'm giving you the pitch email template in the workbook that follows up. But just in case you are thinking, okay, I've got a product and actually I just need a background press release on this, think about the 5 W's in the first paragraphs, the who, what, where, when, and why. So you want all the key information up top. When you think about breaking news, all that key information is in the first paragraph. You almost don't need to read more than the headline in the first paragraph to know what the story is. And your press release should be kind of the same. It should really kind of summarize or have a synopsis of, you know, what the press release is about right up top. And then you give the further background information as why as you go down, and keep it factual. It's not an opportunity for you to be giving your opinions or your advice. It's just there as a factual sheet for the journalist to lift the information if they want to talk about your product or service. But also always include the price, the URL, any key dates, location, and your contact information, because you never know if your email's being forwarded on. Your signature might not be there. If you are comfortable, leave your phone number so the journalist can call you if they've got any questions, or the image desk needs to get a photo of you quickly. And that's kind of, you know, sort of how I thought I would format that. Okay, back to the agenda. So we are at the final, coming up to the final 15 minutes very soon. I just want to end on a dream big. And so for this, I guess I just kind of want to get you thinking about where it is you could be pitching yourself that could get you really big exposure for your product or your service, driving all the traffic to your eBay page, or to your, if you're a small business bitten audience member, maybe it's to your own website. So I'd really love anybody, if you've got a second, to just put into the Q&A where you would maybe like to speak, or maybe have an article of yourself published. Do you want to be in Vogue? Do you want to write a book about how you've created your product? Do you want to do a TEDx talk? Do you want to be speaking about the creativity in your product on a stage like Cannes Lion? Pop some in the chat. Also, because sometimes as well, I can direct people into where it is that they can look to start achieving that, because really it is about the connecting steps. The person asking about the recording, you'll be emailed after the session with the recording. Charles, the TEDx talk. I would say you can actually Google on the TEDx page where the next TEDx events are going to be. And if you actually, a lot of publicity and PR is being a good private detective. So you can actually Google the next submissions and have a look to see if there's a TEDx near you that's doing a theme around environment or sustainability as an opportunity for you to pitch to. But yeah, definitely look at the kind of TEDx local events. Some are better than others. Some of the recordings are better than others, but it's really achievable. They give you guidelines on how to pitch. So that can be a great place to start. But also have a look at your local TEDx producers too, because quite often they are working on themes. So you could pitch something on there. The garden presenter on Blue Peter, I love that. So I would actually potentially start by looking at producers and researchers for Blue Peter, or the production company that produces Blue Peter, as a way for you to start making the connections there. Christine is saying, marketing and growth strategist for small business. Where should I focus? I'd love some new ideas. Well, I want you, Christina, to think about your dream big, but I guess I would be thinking about where small businesses are playing. So perhaps you could be pitching to Amber, who's here from Small Business Britain, as a way to kind of create a workshop or a talk or a guest article for a platform like that, which is hitting your target audience. I think public speaking and podcasts and guest articles are a great way to kind of hit that small business audience. For myself, I kind of do a lot of work with a small business creative entrepreneur audience. So I look for bigger names who are in that space and see if I can find a way to collaborate with them. Matt saying South by Southwest. Again, you can actually find out in advance the submission guidelines. If you Google submission guidelines for X, for a lot of the conferences and events, they have the information up there and when you can apply, and you can quite often apply online. But again, I would be looking at the researchers, the program managers, people who are putting that together. Times Education Supplement. So again, there's not going to be a huge amount of journalists writing for the Times Education Supplement. So I'd be having a bit of a search. Twitter is a great place to search for journalist names. So I'd be having a search on there and start connecting with those journalists, resharing their articles, engaging with their articles. That's going to be a great way to kind of get you front of mind and start building relationships with them. Sustainable gift items. So I would say for you, I would start maybe having a look at sustainable journalists or people who've historically written about sustainable products. So you might want to Google top 10 sustainable gift items, because quite often those lists, they're called listicles, are reviewed about once a year. So you could say, you know, are you going to update it for 2023? But generally, if people are writing about those sort of things, they're going to have that interest to sort of know about the product. So it could just be a great relationship boosting with them. Guy said, where could an interior designer dream big? So I guess, Guy, for me, it'd be like, what is your business objective? Like, do you want to be doing interior design for celebrities? Do you want to be partnering with a brand? Do you want to be teaching as a workshop? So it really kind of depends on what your business goals are for your interior design business, and then finding something that kind of takes it on from that. Oh, we've got so many here. What are we doing on time? We've got 10 minutes. Okay, we're fine. I am going to just do the quick sort of show notes for the end of the slide, and then I'm going to keep going through these sort of questions so that I don't run out of time, just to kind of give you the follow-up at the end. But just as a recap, we went through an assessment. So we looked at where we were at today. We had a thought about what's on Google, what do we want to be on Google. We've set our business goals for ourselves. We have set our values, so we know that wherever it is that we're playing is going to be aligned to what our business goals are. We've started to look at building, so we're looking at what we need in our press toolkit, so we're ready and raring to go when we start pitching ourselves out there to press and to podcasts or to Amber at Small Business Britain. We started to have a little look at curation, so we started to think about different topic ideas. So we've got some guardrails for ourselves, again, aligned with our business goals. So whether or not we are doing business expertise or passion points or a human interest story. And then we finished on a dream big. So we've set a big goal for ourselves. Hopefully, if we haven't, we will hopefully get there, or something's going to pop after the session today. And then we're going to start those connecting steps to get there. There's so many questions. I'm going to get to them, which is fantastic. But just as a kind of sort of final bit of housekeeping, in case you don't want to sit for the questions at the end, please do give me a follow on Lucy Werner PR on Instagram, Twitter. It's the same actually on all social media channels, but I'm probably most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So come and connect with me. Come and talk about how great the talk was with Small Business Britain and eBay on your socials, and give me a tag. And thank you so much, everybody. I think that's it for today. You will be sent the recording, and don't forget to sign up for the next sessions. Have a lovely rest of the day.